There's no such thing as a stupid question, but there are stupid answers. In A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the answer to life, the universe and everything was 42. Except no one knew what the question was, so the answer was useless. There are a lot of 42s in photography. It turns out people with genuinely good information and the best of intentions can give bad answers, and here's why. I recently told a photographer that they were being scammed because they used a print-on-demand submission magazine, the type that either charges you for the submission or they sell expensive copies of the magazine to the people submitting the work because nobody else is buying copies. If they were a professional photographer, then I'd probably have been helping them. Saying you published in one of these magazines is misleading to your followers and your future clients. You'd be scamming them. That's why Instagram profiles that say internationally published is such a frowned upon meme. But my opinion is from the realm of having a reputable business. What I often fail to appreciate is that there are people making pictures for fun, who love the idea of submitting to a magazine and seeing their images on the pages. It might be the only time they've ever had their work printed out. The same product has different results for people with different goals. For some amateurs, the magazine's a fun project well spent. For most professionals, it's a misleading credential used to fool potential clients. So maybe I shouldn't get as annoyed with print-on-demand magazines as I do. They're not for me, but I know that some people will get a kick out of using them. And now that I think about it, I've probably been giving bad advice to loads of people because our intentions are mismatched. This is the problem. A question asked by one category of photographer will get a different answer depending on the characteristics of the person answering the question. Imagine the different answers you'd get if you asked a financially successful photographer about the types of marketing they do versus a professional who pretty much lives off their spouse's income. Which would you get a more useful answer from? Some quick definitions are needed here so we know the characteristics of the question asker and the answerer. Amateurs take pictures for fun, using money from their day job to fund the hobby. Semi-professionals make money as a profitable side hustle, and professionals take pictures for a living. Any of these photographers can be beginners or experienced depending on how many pictures they've taken. And subjectively, anyone can take good or bad pictures, and that's a lot of possible combinations. Not to make it needlessly confusing, but a single person could be a professional portrait photographer during the week, a semi-pro YouTuber on an evenings, and an amateur landscape photographer on the weekends. The more realistically you can define yourself, the better, but also keep in mind the characteristics of the photographer you want to become, because that's also the characteristic of the person you want answering your questions, the one you'll get a useful critique from, the one you'll tolerate when they're truthful with you. I think you can mix and match too. I'd definitely ask a low-quality professional photographer about accounting and marketing, but I'd turn to a quality amateur any day about post-production techniques, and definitely not the other way around. Most photography questions will have more valuable answers if we first establish if you're taking pictures for fun or to feed your family. What camera should I buy is a great example. An amateur should buy the one that brings them the most pleasure for their budget. Tell an amateur that they don't need a new camera and you're doing them a disservice because that's part of the fun. And they've got the day job to fund it. The professional should have better things to spend the money on than a camera unless it's broken. Tell a professional that their equipment is out of date and they'll laugh at you because they can make money with a crop-censored potato if they had to. On forums, on social media, even in person, it's critical to determine the credentials of the person answering your questions. It's just as important as them knowing where you are in your photography journey. It's actually quite simple. You need to find someone who's where you want to be, someone who's had experience in what you're going through and has clearly made the right decisions through those struggles. I asked a question on social media about moving to a smaller studio space and what modifiers people find work better in smaller spaces. One of the answers was by someone who only uses natural light, and they said that I should shoot in nature's studio. And that's something that I love to do, but what if photography was my side hustle and I could only shoot after dark? What if it's winter and an elderly client needs to be out of the cold? Nature studios only open at certain times of day and on certain days of the year. I asked a loose question without explaining my characteristics. Someone who needs a consistent look any time of any day. The person answering my question might just shoot 4 portraits a year for all I know, so we're mismatched. With better communication, I'd have received a more useful answer. And I did, by the way, because someone else suggested a strip box turned horizontal, and that's great for places with low ceilings. So as I go forwards, I'll make more of an effort to understand who's asking the question so that the answer can have more value and more relevance to them. And that means listening more before I let my mouth loose. Different advice is needed for different photographers because the same question can have very different answers.